Lesson 6, Prescription Data. When a healthcare provider, an HCP, writes a prescription for a patient and that patient receives the product from a pharmacy, that becomes a sale. So that counts as a script or a prescription written as far as accounting in pharmaceutical data. Prescriptions exist in a variety of forms, including vials, pills, packs, units, and capsules. Sales data is calculated in several different ways. Prescription RX is calculated, first of all, in total RX. Total RX is the total number of scripts for existing and new patients. New RX is the total for new patients only. So if you look at a specific HCP, a doctor, and you say, how many prescriptions has that doctor written in a specific time period, be it a week or a month or a year, you can sum all that up. So you get a total RX value for all the patients, and you get a new RX value for the new patients. Is one more important than the other? That's always a good question. It depends upon what you're looking at. So if you want to grow your existing business within the same customer base, you want to look at growing business. You want to look at new RXs in that case. Expanding your business to another customer base. If you're expanding your business because you have a new indication, you would look at new RXs in another area. And then sustaining. Sustaining may be that you want to continue to write or have your HCPs write prescriptions to the same patients, therefore growing your TRX. So it all depends upon what you're looking at from a sales perspective and also from an incentive perspective. And there'll be a whole chapter on incentives later on. How pharma products are sold. We discussed this briefly earlier. It's not like any other product out there. So if you were a sales associate that sold office supplies, like computers, paper, office supplies, you make the sale. You know you made the sale. You actually have your product delivered. You invoice the customer. They pay you net 30 or net 60, and you get your money that way. You know you made the sale. It doesn't work that way for pharma. Pharma companies develop a product. Manufacturers produce the product for the pharma company. Manufacturers sell the product to distributors. Distributors then sell the product to pharmacies, and pharmacies distribute the products to patients. Now, some of the entities above can be the same. You may have a pharma company that also manufactures your own product and also acts as a distributor. So they could be the same. But there's a lot of hands that are involved in this, taking a product from development all the way through giving it or having it prescribed to a patient. The other thing we want to discuss quickly is prescription products versus over-the-counter. Over-the-counter products are products that you don't need a prescription for, an RX for. Now, many OTC products were once prescription products, but what happened was over time they were seen to be safe, and it was thought that patients could make rational decisions with OTC products, and therefore a prescription product became over-the-counter. Product life cycle. So people think, and this gets into the whole cost of products as well, why certain brands are so much money. It takes 8+ years to bring a brand to market. And depending upon the patent time, when you first file for your patent, you only have a limited time to recoup those costs. So your product development, approval, and distribution is a complex process. Determining if a sale was made can be difficult to figure out. The product life cycle, as we just mentioned, is about 8+ years. Manufacturing can commence before FDA approval. The pros to this is you have a longer time to sell the product over the whole course of time based upon the patent. The con is that it's additional risk to the company. If you start manufacturing a product before it's approved and the product is not approved, then what do you do? Now you have a lot of product that can't be legally sold anywhere, so you've lost money. So you have to understand the pros and cons of what that is, and a lot of times a pharmaceutical company will know based upon early clinical trials whether they believe their product will be approved or not. Emergency use authorization versus full approval. This is very, very big right now with the COVID-19 situation. You can apply for emergency use authorization because so many patients are afflicted by a condition or a disease or a virus in this case, and therefore you can have it prescribed and have it given to patients before it's fully approved. The full approval process takes longer because you have to have more data. So data is the difference between emergency use and full approval. How are prescriptions collected? So pharma companies purchase their own data back from third-party vendors. There's several of them out there, but the two that are the biggest are IQVIA, which used to be called Quintiles, which was originally called IMS Health, and the other is Symphony. What happens is these vendors go and they purchase prescription data from pharmacies like CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart. These vendors then compile all that data at various levels, including the patient level, the provider level, the account level. And now pharma companies have insight into sales and the sales of their competitors. Sometimes vendors have rules. So if a pharma company wants to opt out of having their data available for other companies, the vendor may not sell to that company. Also, a lot of times pharma companies may turn over some of their internal data, internal numbers, to a vendor, and then the vendor will make that available to the entire industry. So there's a lot of pros and cons with this. There's a lot of contracting that goes into it. But needless to say, the only way to get insight into what other people are doing is to buy data from third-party vendors, or you could try to go out and collect the data yourself, but it's a very, very time-consuming process and expensive process also. Prescription data caveats. So vendors do not collect 100% of the data. Several pharmacies in the country, at one time it was Walmart, which is a huge pharmacy, several pharmacies do not want to sell their data because of privacy concerns. So what happens is the vendors will not collect 100%. They will collect all that they can, and then they will use projection methodology to fill in the holes. So if they only collect 90% of the data, they will use an algorithm that says, okay, this doctor wrote X number of scripts. I've only collected 90%. I can fill in the gap by determining how many scripts he probably wrote based upon the pharmacies that are not reporting their data. So it's not an exact number. However, it's consistent, and that's one of the things to always remember. It's more important to be consistent with your reporting of your data than to collect 100% of the data. HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. This is where we're talking about mostly patient data, so security concerns about who can see what data, and you want to de-identify patients as well, so you cannot link a specific product back to a patient. And we'll discuss HIPAA in more detail in a lesson later on in this course. Pharma companies can act as their own data aggregator and enter into agreements with specialty pharmacies. So pharma companies can bypass third-party vendors, and they can aggregate and build their own algorithms for their data. But companies do not want to become collection agencies and processing agencies. They just want the data, and they want to go to a trusted source like IQVIA, like Symphony, bring that data in, and then react to the market and be proactive to the market based upon what they see. The Physician Data Restriction Program, PDRP. This is an American Medical Association program developed in 2006. What this basically says is certain doctors can opt out of sales associates and other field personnel from seeing their prescription data. Now, this is a good and bad thing. So when a sales associate looks at a report, a sales report, and he or she looks at all of their doctors, there may be some doctors that are PDRP. They want to opt out. So they will be flagged as PDRP, and their prescriptions for products will be listed as 0. However, it is still okay for the pharmaceutical company to develop a deliverable, a dashboard, or a report at the summary level. So I may have a doctor that opts out, but when I summarize my total prescriptions for my territory, that doctor's numbers are in there. Sales and time. Sales data is reported over time, over various time periods. Week-to-date sales are purchased from the vendor in this format. Week-to-date is good, but it's more volatile. It's more for trending purposes only. If a doctor's on vacation or at a conference, they're going to have no scripts for a week possibly, and they can go back to their regular prescribing habit the next week. So it's very, very volatile. And patients can take vacations in the summer months and over the holidays, and sometimes if their prescriptions run out, they won't get them refilled, And that's why weekly data is not really used as an industry standard, especially for incentives. But it is good for trending purposes to see if things are trending up or down in your specific territory. Month-to-date sales is purchased from vendors in this format. It's incentive grade data, meaning it's the data that's most commonly used for incentives, for incentivizing sales associates. And monthly data is great because it smooths out irregularities over time periods. Semester or quarter-to-date sales, this can be derived if needed. It's not usually used for reporting purposes, but it can be used for trending and things like that. These data elements may not be additive, so you have to make sure that you look at this a week to date or a month to date is within a closed window. Sometimes a week will overlap multiple months, for example, or a month. So therefore, if a week overlaps multiple months, how do you then determine it? So you can't add up week 1, 2, 3, and 4 and say that equals month 1 because they're not additive. They don't line up correctly. Seasonality. So some concerns you want to have when you're looking at your sales data and your prescription data is that some drugs are used more frequently at different times of the year. For example, a topical drug will be used more during the summer months. A topical drug is something that would treat like a condition on your skin or on your nails. And because people wear less clothing in the summer and their body parts are more visible, they want to hide that or treat that condition because it's unsightly. So they'll take a topical drug more often in the summer months. Found out also, cholesterol and diabetes drugs tend to be taken more in the winter months. People tend to eat more in the winter due to the weather, and sometimes because of they're eating more and they're indoors and they're not outside exercising as much or moving around as much, and people tend to gain weight in the winter. That your diabetes issues and your cholesterol tends to go up, so people end up taking more cholesterol drugs and diabetes drugs in winter months. Sales and summary metrics. In future chapters, we're going to discuss various types of sales metrics that are calculated using prescription or RX data. Metrics are going to include prescription volume, prescription share, your product share across other products, trending, time periods. We're going to look at geography roll-ups. We're going to look at your region, your district, and your territory. We're going to look at healthcare specialty roll-ups. We're going to look at target, tier, and decile roll-ups. And we're going to look at custom roll-ups. Basically, what this is going to do is you want to cut and you want to view all of your RX data in specific chunks so that it best helps you understand your market and how to sell through more to your HCPs. Thank you. That is the end of lesson 6. There will now be a 10-question quiz.